work. Thesis-Gate has now entered 2021. Judicial proceedings are underway in both Taiwan and the UK. Tsai Ing-wen's phony degree has no hope of being authenticated. Yet still, she is calling for the courts to recognize her bogus credentials. The presidential office has dipped its dirty hands into the foreign ministry, the education ministry, and the judicial system. It desperately tries to cover up a 37-year-old case of academic dishonesty. Their actions are like sulfur, eroding the integrity of this country. Though it might seem futile, we must remind the presidential office that honesty is the best policy. They should come forward and explain why a picture in Tsai's autobiography was labeled as taken in London when it was taken in Boston. Furthermore, they must also address why Tsai's 1983 part-time tenure at Soochow University is not in the Education Ministry's records or mentioned in Wikipedia. The first Thesis-Gate-related court case to proceed in 2021 is Professor He Defen's. Professor He is suing the Education Ministry, alleging that it had wrongfully classified Tsai's career files. That case had its first hearing at Taiwan's High Administrative Court on January 13th. The judges asked the ministry whether or not it had asked Tsai Ing-wen if she was willing to publicize her personal information and submit that information to legal examination. The Education Ministry's lawyer said that he would have to ask the original case handler. 1 week later, Taiwan's High Court held legal proceedings for Dr. Dennis Peng's case, which seeks to confirm the existence of Tsai's thesis. People packed the courtroom with crowds flowing out into the hallway. Both sides engaged in debate for over an hour. 3 panel judges deliberated on the spot and issued a decision immediately. The judges said that they don't believe the lower court fully exercised its power of inquiry. The High Court ordered the lower court to reverse its decision because there were issues with how the case was handled. The judges sided with Dr. Dennis Peng and decided in his favor. The High Court ordered the lower court to rescind its initial decision and retry the case.
今天高院的这个宣判的结果，对我们来讲，这是上签，因为法官直接把这件事情发回，意思就是直接打脸了一审的张永慧法官，而且法官阐明说，没有开庭，没有调查证据，就直接驳回，用程序驳回我们，他认为不妥，所以把整个案子发回到一审。所以对高院这个判决，我们认为司法还是有一些公正的法官愿意不受世劫、不受利诱，这点我们是肯定的。
On the surface, the Thesis-Gate cases involving Tsai may be labeled differently and they may involve different parties, but the ultimate goal is the same: to prove whether or not Tsai received a PhD in 1984. Professor He's case seeks to declassify Tsai's career files, which would then shine a light on Tsai's education claims. Dr. Peng's case to prove the existence of Tsai's thesis would provide a straightforward answer to whether or not Tsai received a proper PhD. Even Dr. Peng's case against Xavier Chang could result in an investigation in England for the incriminating evidence. Though the 3 cases may seem unrelated, they serve the same purpose. Of course, Tsai never imagined her situation would become so dire. That's why District Court Judge Zhang Yonghui dismissed Dr. Dennis Peng's case without hearing it just 4 days after Taiwan's presidential election. Judge Zhang's actions are a sign of judicial manipulation. A person well-versed in the legal realm told us about a high-profile case that had a similar outcome. It was thrown out at the district level without even a hearing. That kind of behavior is unethical and often points to obstruction by high-ranking officials. It's no wonder why Tsai Ing-wen wants people close to her to work on Taiwan's constitutional reforms. A person who controls the judicial administration can control personnel allocation within the judicial system. That means they can effectively control the judiciary. Anyone who doesn't fall in line and comply can be relegated to the least desirable positions in the judicial system. There are countless examples of this corruption leading up to the most recent actions by the judiciary. The high courts afforded Dr. Peng a crucial victory, granting him the right to have his case heard again in the district court. Tsai Ing-wen's supporters assert that she did not lose. But if we use logic to deduce what's happening, we can see there's a change in the tide. First, on the surface, the High Court ruled that the District Court did not fulfill its power of inquiry. However, it did not deny that it ruled in favor of the legal merits of Dr. Peng's case. If the High Court agreed with the District Court's decision that neither side had legal merit, then it could have just upheld the District Court's decision. That could have finished the Thesis-Gate movement and would have garnered favor with Tsai Ing-wen. Perhaps the observers and witnesses that packed the courtroom dialed up the pressure on the High Court judges, which drove them to issue a truthful decision. Even though the High Court said that its decision was based on power of inquiry, this decision negates the idea that the case trying to prove the thesis's existence has no legal merit. Second, the first thing the judges did during the pretrial hearing was discuss the version of Tsai's thesis in the National Central Library. Our lawyer Zhang Jing said that if High Court judges were willing to investigate the Thesis-Gate evidence, then she'd be willing to let the High Courts handle the case directly. Tsai's defense boiled down once again to arguing that the case had no legal merit. But now that the High Court has handed the case back to the District Court, will that same argument stand? Can Tsai's side still dodge direct examinations of the evidence? If this case bounces between the High Court and lower court, how will that look to the public? At the beginning of her second term, Tsai's 8.17 million vote mandate will continually wane. As time goes on, judges who think for themselves will unveil the truth. If Tsai can't win Thesis-Gate while she's at the height of her power, it is only a matter of time before she is exposed. The most telling thing about Dr. Peng's High Court appeal is that the judges issued an immediate decision. Dr. Peng's lawyer said she had never seen this before in her 30 years of practicing law.
很少案子，法官言辞辩论终结以后，当庭宣判，一般都会拖个。不是拖，一般都是最少14天，有时候1个月、2个月才宣判啊。言辞辩论终结，当庭宣判，还是我有生我当律师30几年第一次碰到，不容易啊。
The High Court's decision to return the case to the District Court is a safe move that won't offend anyone in high places. Of course, Thesis-Gate owes this victory to its lawyers who pleaded an excellent case. Their arguments were airtight. Even if the judges wanted to rule against Dr. Peng, they would have had a hard time coming up with a reason. Furthermore, hundreds of observers filled the courtroom that day, putting pressure on the judge to issue a righteous and honest decision. Rare as the circumstance may be, veteran court journalist Huang Yuehong approved of the judge's decision. Huang said that had the judge taken any longer, the time between the debate ending and a ruling being issued could become subject to interference. The immediate decision was a statement warning government officials that the court will not succumb to external pressure. Countless government officials have abused their power and influence to privately plead their case in attempts to alter independent and impartial outcomes. This is nothing new in Taiwan. To prevent any interference in this case, the court issued a rare immediate decision. This unusual occurrence proves that the court must be facing pressure straight from the presidential office. It must be nice to have control over the judicial administration. Tsai is no stranger to that power. It is obvious that Tsai Ing-wen has long had a hand in controlling the judicial top brass. For one, her short list of people to form a committee to select Taiwan's grand justices reveals much favoritism. Tsai hasn't been afraid to call out and publicly scold big-name judges. These are the actions of someone who knowingly acts with impunity. The people Tsai nominated for the committee in 2018 include then Vice President Chen Jianren. Leaked presidential office documents show us that Chen was one of Tsai's close confidants. He often strategized with Tsai on how to handle unruly members in the DPP. If he's that close to Tsai, there's no doubt he's part of the movement to counter Thesis-Gate. He's practically Tsai's double. The media has long reported that Chen will replace Su Zhenchang as Taiwan's premier. That way, he can continue to act on Tsai's behalf. Former Grand Justice Liu Tiezhen. Liu was director of NCCU's law department in 1983. He also submitted many open letters supporting Tsai Ing-wen when Thesis-Gate first surfaced. The letters were merely a testament to Liu and Tsai's friendship. He wrote about how prestigious Tsai's degree was. What's even more amazing was his memory, as he recalled the name of Tsai's thesis topic. Not even Tsai Ing-wen herself could do that. Former Grand Justice Lin Ziyi. Ling was Tsai's neighbor and a good friend of hers today. Tsai dedicated an article she submitted to an NCCU publication to Ling in honor of his wedding. Their close relationship aside, what's even more interesting is how Tsai presented her PhD credentials in the article, at a time when she didn't even have her PhD yet. Ling Ziyi knew exactly what was going on. In addition to considering Tsai's control over judicial personnel arrangements, let's once again take a look at the 5-person group who went to London with Tsai in 2011 and where they are now. After Xiaobi Kim lost her election for legislator, she is now Taiwan's representative to the United States. Xie Ziwei is Taiwan's representative to Germany. He has continually tried to undermine Thesis-Gate investigations by characterizing them as subterfuge by China. After losing the 2018 Kaohsiung mayoral election, Chen Qimai was appointed vice premier. Later on, with the help of the central government, he was able to finally become mayor of Kaohsiung after a recall vote. In 2010, Catherine Chang was Taiwan's representative to the UK. She was key to getting Taiwan's UK office to rubber stamp Tsai's credentials so that Tsai could participate in elections in 2011. Chang now serves as Taiwan's representative to Austria. Those who have helped Tsai Ing-wen's deceptions regarding her degree now enjoy high-ranking positions. Tsai's calculating use of personnel is also reflected in the courts. In Dr. Dennis Pang and Professor He Defen's court case against Presidential Office spokesperson Xavier Chang, Tsai has employed the Formosa Transnational law firm. The person who heads Formosa Transnational is Wellington Koo, Secretary General of the National Security Council. Koo can control and intercept sensitive information meant to reach beyond Taiwan's borders. He uses state-level assets to assist in this cover-up. When dealing with Professor He's case, Tsai appointed her cousin-in-law Wu Minghong to head Taiwan's Supreme Administrative Court to keep her career files classified. On the other hand, Dr. Dennis Peng's case to verify the existence of Tsai's thesis is getting resistance from Xu Zhongli, the president of Taiwan's Judicial Yuan. Chen Meitong was made head of the Judicial Yuan's personnel office. Chen Meitong is the wife of Tsai's lawyer, Lien Yuanlong. That staffing adjustment was made as a response measure to combat Thesis-Gate. It's also why Lien can act with such confidence while saying he knows nothing in the courtroom. Lien Yuanlong's entire family is in good graces with Tsai Ing-wen. Not only did Lien represent Tsai in many high-profile cases, but his daughter has now also become a part of Tsai's team. After graduating from the London School of Economics with a master's in communication, she was spotted translating for Tsai during an international post-election victory press conference. Lien's daughter now runs social media for Tsai Ing-wen. It's safe to say that the entire Lien clan is reliant on Tsai. Chen Meitong transitioned from a lawyer to a judge. Under Taiwanese law, only qualified individuals with certain skills can become public servants. When Chen first became head of human resources at the Judicial Yuan, the Ministry of Civil Service said she was not qualified to hold such a position. The Civil Service Ministry said Chen did not fulfill the requirements to become a civil service administrator. She could not go from lawyer to judge to head of human resources. It wasn't until someone significantly higher in the chain spoke with the Civil Service Ministry that the ministry finally relented. Why force a personnel change at such a sensitive time? To fend off Thesis-Gate. As head of human resources, Chen can promote and transfer judges. It's fair to say that Chen had a hand in installing Tsai's cousin-in-law as head of Taiwan's Administrative Supreme Court. The most alarming detail, however, is that the head of human resources has access to the personnel files of every judge in Taiwan. That information can be easily leveraged. A scandal hit Taiwan's justice system in early 2021. Authorities discovered that the owner of a textile company helped over 200 police officers, investigators, civil leaders, and other public servants unlawfully garner promotions. The owner of the company kept detailed records of how he traded favors with workers throughout Taiwan's justice system. The names of officials across all ranks were exposed in these records. The Justice Ministry is desperately scrambling to undo the damage that has been done.
第四，与案件无关且未购买欧茂中公司股票的其余接受调查人员等4种状况来分别处理。那第一种状况是与欧茂中案件有关的包括屈红玉、方万户、秦台生，都已由检察机关分案调查。
你可以看到，就是说司法院到现在还在讲说这个533标准，那法务部的标准叫做更宽松，叫55标准。我们不知道说什么时候可以依据这样的标准，然后就可以对这些司法人员做一个比较差别的、比较宽松的对待。
This case should have been a big break for the Taipei District Prosecutor's Office. The scandal uncovered was massive. However, the central government had different thoughts about how to handle this case. Let's take a look. According to Judicial Yuan and Justice Ministry standards, the number of times an employee takes bribes dictates how heavy their offense is. Every 5 instances of bribe-taking will increase the severity of the offense. Even though the opposition New Power Party called for a thorough examination of assets acquired through questionable sources, both the Judicial Yuan and Justice Ministry ignored those calls. There's a running joke in the legal realm. They say that all authorities need to do is look into who took only 4 bribes and who took more than 5. Then you can figure out who the government is trying to protect. This particular case concerns incidents that happened 20 years ago. Many of the incidents and people involved are past the statute of limitations. The information under review should be part of a closed investigation. However, the Investigation Bureau actually made that information public, causing problems for the judicial system. How could this be done if not at the behest of a high-ranking official? Furthermore, to what end was this decision made? During a prosecutor personnel deliberation, High Prosecutor Ling Zifeng boldly proclaimed he was guilty of a crime. His crime? Exchanging business cards with a Justice Ministry event sponsor who went on to be convicted of a crime. Because of that interaction, Ling was included on a list of potential offenders in the case. Ling's inclusion in the list showed that Taiwan's judicial system was casting a wide net in their investigations. Why is that necessary? To draw attention away from the worst offenders. According to information circulating in the prosecutor's circle, the media had already reported this list of names long before the story broke widely. What's more, several politicians looked over the list before someone finally made it official. Why then did Zhou get included on the list? It's because his subordinate, Taipei District Prosecutor Huang Wei, messed up and failed to properly contain Thesis-Gate during an inquisition on October 14, 2020. Tsai Ing-wen appointed Prosecutor Huang Wei to handle court cases involving the three Thesis-Gate scholars, Dr. Dennis Pang, Dr. Huan Xilin, and Professor He Defen. Huang successfully handled bribery and smuggling scandals involving powerful officials. He was quite good at protecting his bosses. Tsai hopes that she can fend off Thesis-Gate quietly during her final 4-year term. She hopes all of Taiwan can forget that Thesis-Gate ever existed and that people will never discuss it again. The best case scenario for Tsai is that the Taipei District Prosecutor's Office quietly closes the case. Unfortunately for her, Huang Wei buckled under pressure and held an inquiry into Dr. Dennis Pang's case. That inquiry not only reignited public interest in Thesis-Gate, but allowed the movement to launch a counteroffensive against the presidential office. For his mistake, Huang Wei drew Tsai's ire. In the case between Xavier Chang and Dr. Pang, the judge ordered steps be taken to acquire evidence from schools in London. During the first hearing in Dr. Pang's case trying to prove the existence of Tsai's thesis, High Court judges scolded Tsai's lawyer for his vagueness. In the second hearing, they issued a decision in Dr. Pang's favor. The tides are turning. We see that the judicial system is no longer playing by Tsai's rules. The presidential office is losing its grasp on the justice system. This comes as no surprise to us. This has been a long time coming. Tsai's tactic of switching between the carrot and the stick may have worked in the short term, but it's about to backfire. Fate has something much graver in store for her. Tsai will face massive backlash at the judicial level. The justice system will no longer stay quiet and obey her commands. Judges are finally standing up and speaking for themselves. If we can compel one judge to act justly, then it'll only be a matter of time before the rest do as well. However, there is still much work to do.